Good afternoon, church. Today's scripture will be from Mark chapter 5, 21 to 43. I encourage you all to stand on your feet and we will read the word together. On a count of three. 1, 2, 3. And when Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered about him, and he was beside the sea. Then came out one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, so that she may be made well and live." And he went with him, and a great crowd followed him and thronged about him. And there was a woman who had had for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus, and came up behind him in the crowd, and touched his garment. For she said, "If I touch even his garment, I will be made well." And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she made her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, and fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has been made well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." While he was still speaking, there came from the ruler's house some who said, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. And when he had entered, he had said, "Why are you commotion and weeping? The child is not dead but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But he put them all outside, and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him, and went where the child was. Taking her by the hand, he said to her, "Talitha cumi," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And immediately the girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age. And they were immediately overcome with amazement. And he strictly charged them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat. Church, this is the word of the Lord.
Praise be to God. All right, awesome. You guys may be seated. Thank you, Rachel. Why don't we give it up for Isaac? Woo! Hey, isn't that cool, right? I mean, I remember watching him growing in Sunday school, and now he's sharing same pulpit. And that's the thing about our church. Also, we want to encourage everyone, not just those who've been attending for a while, but if you start to call this place your home, we do want to encourage you to start find your roles and your part in a ministry, because we believe that God has specific purpose for you in this place, not just to attend, but to be body of Christ. Amen? So as a body, that means you have a role to play. Okay? A little bit of side note, if you start to realize my voice is a little bit different, because it is. I'm a little bit under the weather, but don't worry, I check. Okay? I checked this morning, negative. All right? I don't know about tomorrow though. But this morning, I was still negative. All right? So let me start the sermon. For the record, I still believe, and I do believe with all my heart, that God still performs miraculous healing. I mean, there's nothing in the Bible that indicates that God has stopped. See, I believe the same Jesus who has the power to heal 2,000 years ago still have the power to miraculously heal today. Okay? If you believe it, say amen. Okay? If you are a cessationist, let me say this to you. I love you, but I think you're wrong. Okay? But you're welcome here. You're welcome here. If you do not know what that word means, this is the right place for you. But over the years, what happened is many liberal scholars rejected the possibility of miracles altogether. They said that Jesus' miracle in the Bible, they're nothing but fairy tale that the disciples made up. They said that miracles cannot happen. Why? Because miracles is disruption to natural law. Isn't that what our science textbook tell us today? Everything needs to be explained by cause and effect. There's a reason for everything. But are they right? Now, I agree that miracles are disruption to natural law. I agree that. But I disagree. Just because it is disruption to natural law, then it cannot happen. I mean, this is a very, very weak argument. Let me give you an example. How many of you guys believe in the law of gravity? Anyone? You guys believe in the law of gravity? You know what the law of gravity say? The law of gravity say if we throw an object to the air, that object will eventually fall. That's the law of gravity. Okay? Because there's a natural force that pulls everything to the ground. Now, if by whatever reason you don't believe in the law of gravity, let me tell you, just wait. Just wait. Because it doesn't matter how in shape you are right now. It doesn't matter how often you go to gym this month, this year. Eventually, gravity wins. If you understand what I mean. Eventually, that wrinkle will start to show up. Eventually, that face will eventually fall down, right? That's going to happen to you, whether you like it or not. Okay, so if we don't believe in the law of gravity, time will prove us wrong. It doesn't matter how in shape we are. Gravity will eventually win. But do you know there's another law that supersedes the law of gravity? It's not plastic surgery or liposuction. It's not that. It is the law of aerodynamics. Okay, now, do you guys know what a law of aerodynamics is? Here's what happened. The law of gravity says if we try to put a heavy metal on the air with 200 people on it, what's happened? It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to fall to the ground. But let me ask you this question. How many of you come from overseas? Anyone here overseas? I think pretty much most of you, right? You come from overseas. How did you get here? Did anyone swim to Australia? I hope not, right? What do? You flew. You get a plane. Now what happened there? That means the law of aerodynamics overrules the natural law of gravity. Now if human can think of a way to make it such a way that the law of aerodynamics actually overrule the law of gravity, my question is, why can't God do the same? Why can't the creator of the universe who established natural law decide to supersede natural law from time to time? If an airline company do it every day, surely the sovereign king of the universe can do it whenever he wishes. What is humanly impossible is divinely simple for Jesus. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because here, in today's passage, if you grew up in church, this is a very popular passage. In today's passage, Mark will zoom in on two very different miracles. And in both stories, we have people who have issues that is humanly impossible to solve. I mean, they tried every human resource and nothing worked. So they're facing hopeless situation and they are desperate. But here's what happened. They turned to Jesus. And when they turned to Jesus, suddenly there was hope where there was no hope. Suddenly they find hope in the middle of situation there was no hope. So if I can sum up my sermon in 2 sentences, I don't always do this. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's this, okay? When all human hope are exhausted, nothing is hopeless for Jesus. There's always hope when one turns to Jesus. Okay, let me say that one more time. When all human hope are exhausted, nothing is hopeless for Jesus. There's always hope when one turns to Jesus. Okay? In this passage, we'll see, as Jesus in the last couple of weeks, we see Jesus has authority over storms, over demons. Today, we will see Jesus has authority over diseases and death. Okay? So I have 4 points to my sermon. Desperation, disruption, intervention, resurrection. Okay, let's get the first one. Desperation. Verse 21 to 28. And when Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered about him, and he was beside the sea. Then came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, so that she may be made well and live." And he went with him. And a great crowd followed him and thronged about him. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, "If I touch even his garment, I will be made well." Now, in this story, we find there are two people who are desperate. Okay, the first is called Jairus. His name is Jairus. So after Jesus cast out many demons from the man in Gerasenes from last sermon, then Jesus returned to the other side of the sea. And as usual, a great crowd quickly gathered around Jesus. And then suddenly a man showed up and fell at the feet of Jesus. And this is shocking to the crowd. Not shocking because someone fell at the feet of Jesus. It's shocking because who is this man? Because Jairus is no ordinary person. Jairus is one of the rulers of the synagogue. Now, synagogue is actually a place where Jews gather to worship. So in today's terms, Jairus is actually the CEO of a church. Okay, not a pastor, CEO. So Jairus is not a teacher of the law, but Jairus is actually in charge of everything that happened in the synagogue. So this is a man with high position and authority among the religious leaders. He's rich and acknowledged by the Jewish community. He's at the top of social ladder. And this is what's interesting. We know, right, the relationship between Jesus and the religious leaders, they're not good. Remember what happened last time? The religious leaders hated Jesus and plotted to kill Jesus. So for Jairus to come to Jesus and fall at Jesus' feet is shocking to the crowd. It is shocking. And Jairus has actually risked a lot just to do that, just to come to Jesus. Well, the question is, why did he do it? What made him do it? Because he is a desperate father. Mark tells us that Jairus' daughter is at the point of death. So that means his daughter is not only sick, but rather he sees in ICU and she's barely hanging in there. She's at the end of her life. Now, parents, you understand this, right? When your child is sick, you get extremely worried. Am I right, parents? But when your child is at the brink of death, you are desperate. You will do anything to save your children. I remember what happened to my parents. I remember when my dad first told me that I had leukemia many years ago. Well, at the time, you know the story, I have no idea what leukemia was. All I know was Song Hye Kyo died in one of the Korean drama because of leukemia. That's all I know. So when my dad told me about it, I remember he can't stop crying. Not just because he's melancholic, he is, but because he knew something that I did not know at the time. And that is what? There's no cure to leukemia. Chemotherapy does not guarantee healing from leukemia. So my dad was desperate. And here, Jairus is desperate for his daughter because his daughter is at the point of death. So he does what no other religious leaders will do. He seeks Jesus. And he asks Jesus, "Jesus, would you come with me? Would you lay hand on my daughter? Because I know if you do that, she will be made well." And you know what Jesus says? Let's go. To everyone's surprise, Jesus agrees to go with Jairus. So Jairus is the first desperate person in the story. Well, the second person is more unique. The second person is a woman, and we had no idea what her name is. But we know why she's desperate. Basically this. She has had a problem with uncontrollable menstrual flow for 12 years. Now, ladies, you understand this. Guys, we don't. Okay? Don't pretend. We don't understand. But ladies, think about it. Imagine having this pain for 12 years. I mean, you know how painful it is to have it once a month, right? Imagine having it for one whole week. That's bad. Imagine having it for one whole month. That's bad. Imagine having it for one whole year and then continue year after year for 12 years straight. Now, can you imagine the pain? Women, ladies, that is painful. So this woman is desperate, okay, for a couple of reasons. First, she experienced physical struggle. Okay, she's really sick and there's no cure at the time. Second, she experienced financial struggle.
Because apparently she go to many different doctors and no one can help her. So she spent all her money seeking a cure, but there's none. In fact, Mark tells us that her condition is getting worse, not getting better. It's getting worse every year. And third, she experienced spiritual struggle. How do we know? Because according to Jewish law, a woman who is in her menstrual cycle is considered unclean for 7 days. And during her cycle, she's not allowed to enter temple or synagogue because everything she touched become unclean. So woman, can you think about it? So if you're in that cycle, you can't come to church. Okay? So now these women haven't been coming to church for 12 years. That's long, right? And not only that, but fourth, she experienced social struggle. Because everything she touched become unclean, that means she must live in isolation until her condition gets better. The problem is, it does not get better for 12 years. So that means she's been living in isolation for 12 straight years. Imagine that. 12 straight years with no social interaction, with no physical touch whatsoever. It's like this. Imagine you were tested positive for COVID, okay, and you experienced all the symptoms for 12 years. What would you feel? You will feel hopeless, right? You'll be very desperate. You will long for a cure, but there is no cure. So you must self-isolate for 12 straight years. And this is what happened with this woman. That's why this woman is desperate. Because she spent all her money to find a cure, but there was none. To the point that she became poor and outcast. And we don't even know her name. See, if Jairus is at the top of social ladder, this woman is at the bottom of social ladder. But she heard of Jesus. Okay? So I don't know how, but she heard of Jesus, how Jesus healed the sick and cast out demons. And she believed in Jesus. Miraculously, she's like, you know what? If only I can touch his garment, then I will be made well. Now, we have no idea why she thinks this way. Okay? Maybe she thought, you know what? If Jesus can touch a person and that person is healed, maybe it also works in reverse. Maybe I can touch Jesus and I will be healed. There is no theological basis for her reasoning. The point is, she's desperate. That's it. She is desperate. And a desperate person will do anything. So when she heard what Jesus can do, she thought, this is it, Mike. This is my last chance. This is my last chance to get healed. So she came up with a plan. And her plan is brilliant. Her plan is called what? Touch and run. Okay? What is her plan? So she's going to sneak in behind Jesus, she's going to touch Jesus, and she's going to run away. Why? Because she understands, but by doing that, she disobeys ceremonial law by being around Jesus and the crowd. She's going to make everyone she touches become unclean, including Jesus. If people find out about it, she will experience public humiliation. Just think about it. Imagine if there's someone in the midst of us who's positive COVID. And that person said to everyone, hi guys, I'm here, but I am positive. You guys know what happened? Immediately we walk away, right? Immediately everyone left the church building. And we will talk about that person for many years. And that's what happened. She does not want to risk it. That's why she want to do touch and run, because she's not supposed to be among crowds. But she's desperate. And a desperate person would do anything. So she decided to take the risk and touch Jesus without anyone knowing about it. So what can we learn from these two people? Simple as this. These two people, they are very different from one another. One is at the top of the ladder. The other is at the bottom of the ladder and an outcast. But they have similarities. You know what their similarities are? They are desperate. Both do not know what else to do. Both have tried every other means, but it does not work. And now, because of that, both turn to Jesus. Isn't that amazing? There's something about desperation that actually lead people to do the radical and the unthinkable. Desperation led CEO of synagogue to seek Jesus and fall at his feet. Desperation led this woman to risk her reputation and touch Jesus from behind. And here's what we know about the faith of these two people. Their faith are not perfect. How do we know? Because all they want is healing, not the healer. All they want is something that they can get from Jesus. But you know what happened? Rather than being turned off by it, Jesus used this desperation to reveal to them who He is. And this is the important lesson for us. Don't miss this. Desperation is often a prelude to grace. There's something about pain and desperation that often lead us to Jesus. So I want to encourage you this. If you face desperation in your life, don't hate it. Because a lot of time, God put us in that hopeless, desperate situation. You know why? So that you and I may learn to turn to Him. Because I've seen it again play out in my pastoral ministry. You know, most people encounter Jesus not at their brightest time. You know when they encounter Jesus? At the lowest, darkest, most desperate moment of their life. There's something about desperation. When everything else fails us, when there is no hope, there's something about that makes us finally turn to Jesus. And when we turn to Jesus, here's what we find. Jesus is ready and waiting to rescue us. Desperation can destroy us, but desperation can also save us if it makes us turn to Jesus. But then look at what happened next, the disruption. Verse 29 to verse 34. And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she has healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your diseases." Now, what happened in these verses is both amazing and bewildering. Okay, it's amazing because what happened? The woman touched Jesus. I mean, the very second the woman touched Jesus, you know what happened? Immediately, the flow of blood dries up. Immediately, she's healed of her disease. Come on, think about it. 12 years of pain. 12 years of frustrations. 12 years of shame. 12 years of loneliness resolved in a single touch. Immediately. And then she can feel it in her body. And you know what's amazing? It's free. It costs her nothing. So now, by coming to Jesus in a single touch, she finds the cure that she's been looking for. It's amazing. But what's bewildering is what happened next. So the Bible says that Jesus perceived power came out of him. Now, I do not know how Jesus perceived the power come out of him. Maybe it's like the spider tingle, I don't know. But Jesus is like, "Ooh, something happened here." Okay? And he knows that power has come out of him. And you know what he did? He stops. Now, okay, remember the context. They are on their way, where? To Jairus' daughter. Jairus' daughter is at the brink of death. Every minute is precious. And now, Jesus suddenly stopped. I mean, and then he turned to the crowd and he asked a weird question. "Who touched me?" I mean, okay, if you are Jairus, you must thought, this got to be the most ridiculous question ever. My daughter is about to die, and you want to know who touched your garment? Are you serious? And at this time, the disciples are probably annoyed at Jesus as well. Mark does not tell us who says this, but Luke does. One of the disciples answered Jesus. Does anyone want to guess which disciple it is? It's our old brother, Peter. Peter replies, "Well, teacher, here's the thing. You are surrounded by a great crowd. They are all pressing around you. They all touch you. What do you mean, who touched you? They all did. And why is it important to know who touched you anyway? Can't you see that his daughter, Jairus' daughter, is in ICU? We must get to her as soon as possible. We don't have time for this dumb question." But Jesus is the man who can't be moved. He insists, who touched me? But here's a question for us. Why did Jesus ask this weird question? I mean, did he really not know who touched him? Let me tell you something about Jesus. More often than not, when Jesus asks a question, it's not because he does not know the answer. I think in this case, Jesus knows exactly who touched him, but he wants the person to own it. Now, it's like this. It's like when you have little kids in your house, right? Like a couple of kids in your house, and you see the lid of the cookie jar is off. And all the kids are watching TV, looking clean. But one of them has cookie crumb all over his face. So you ask, okay, who opened the cookie jar? It's not that you don't know, right? But you want to give the opportunity for that kid to own it. But of course, the guilty kid will say, I don't know. The jar opened by itself and the cookie just disappeared. Oh, maybe it was cookie rapture. We don't know. And Jesus is inviting this woman, come on, own it. And some of us might think, well, that's mean. Why would Jesus call her out? Why don't Jesus just heal her and let her go? Isn't that would be better? Here's why. I think it's because Jesus wants more for the woman than what the woman wants for herself. Let me show you. What does Jesus want for this woman? Let's continue with the story. So at this time, the woman feels it. The woman knows that she's been healed. She knows that Jesus has touched her and she's now cured of her diseases. And she's terrified because she knows exactly the consequences of what she did. She touched Jesus and she made Jesus unclean. And this is why she wanted to remain anonymous in the first place. But Jesus will not allow it. So finally she come out and confess everything she did. And remember, and now the crowd are ready to humiliate her for it. The crowd are ready to stab her, just to kill her, just to talk bad about her because she's not supposed to do that. But you know what Jesus say? Pay attention. I love Jesus' response because it's so different from what everyone expected. Verse 34. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. So rather than condemning this woman, Jesus said, call her what? Daughter. And this is the only time in all four Gospels that Jesus called a woman daughter. It's a tender and gentle word. Now, can you start to see what Jesus is doing here? Do you know why Jesus wanted her to own what she did? Because what this woman wanted was simply healing. What this woman wanted was miracle. But what Jesus wanted is an encounter. Jesus wanted more for her. Jesus not only desired for this woman to be healed, oh no. Jesus desired a relationship with her. Jesus is not trying to embarrass her. No. Jesus is trying to elevate her. And that is why Jesus continued to say, daughter, your faith has made you well. Listen, it was not her touch that made her well. Many other people touched Jesus and nothing happened. But this woman's touch was different because she did not simply touch Jesus. She touched Jesus in faith. And it is her faith in Jesus that made her well. And once again, let me remind you, her faith was imperfect. She simply wanted healing from Jesus. She did not want the healer, she wanted healing. But then Jesus honored that imperfect faith and answered with healing, which tells us something crucial about our God. Don't miss this. We do not have to have everything figured out first before we come to Jesus. We can come to Jesus with our imperfect faith, and Jesus will honor it. He will. He will honor it. But here's what's amazing about Jesus. He did not stop there. Jesus is not satisfied for the woman to simply to know him as a healer. Jesus wanted the woman to know, woman, you're my daughter. I love you. I watch over you. I care for you. You think all these years no one cares about you. I love you. I care for you. You are my daughter. So from that moment, this woman is no longer an outcast. The woman who had no name is called daughter by the sovereign king of the universe. And now she can go in peace. You know why? Because her encounter with Jesus changes everything about her. Because right now, she's healed of her disease. That means she has physical peace. Now she does not need to waste her money on doctors anymore. So now she has financial peace. Now she's free to join church in the synagogue. And now she has spiritual peace. And now she can go back and live together with her community. And she has social peace. Everything changes. You know why? Because simply she touched Jesus in faith. And here's the encouragement for every one of us. There's an invitation from the King of this universe to every individual in this place. Now, you might come to this place with many baggage. You might come to this place with many issues that I have no clue, your neighbors have no clue, your parents have no clue, your spouse has no clue. You keep it inside of you. And Jesus is offering the same invitation to all of us. It does not matter how messy you are. It does not matter how weak you are. It does not matter how dirty you are. It does not matter how ugly you are. Jesus is not too busy to stop and heal you when you come to Him in faith. Because that is the gospel. Jesus did not come for the clean. He came for the dirty. Jesus did not come for those who are well. He came for the sick. He did not come for those who have all together. He came for those who need help. So the question is not whether Jesus is willing or not, or no. The question is, are you coming to Him in faith? Because He will honor it. But let's not forget, there's another character who's watching on the sideline. He's probably tapping his foot right now. And his name is Jairus. Intervention. Verse 35 to verse 36. While he was still speaking, there came from the ruler's house some who said, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." Now let's put ourselves in Jairus' shoe for a bit, right? First, you're annoyed at Jesus for making a random stop and asking a dumb question. And then, you're extremely annoyed at this woman. Because think about it, this woman is sick for what? 12 years. Surely she can wait another hour. But your daughter is about to die. It is emergency. Jesus is your last hope. And this woman suddenly cut out of nowhere. But he can't do anything because he's with Jesus. It's like this. It's like whenever you drive, okay, and your pastor is sitting next to you, and someone cut in the lane in front of your car. You want to say it, but you don't, because your pastor is sitting next to you. If you know it, say amen. No amen? I know some of you do that before. Okay? This is what happened. So the woman just cut out a lane out of nowhere, but then here's what happened. At the same time, Jairus sees what Jesus does with this woman. Hold on a second. 12 years of medical problem with no cure, healed in a single touch? So now if you're Jairus, you start to have faith. If Jesus can heal this woman, just like that, Jesus can heal my daughter. This is going to work. My daughter is going to live. Banzai! And just as you are having this thought, a messenger from your house arrived. And the expressions on the messenger's face tell you everything you need to know. Everything. You know it. The moment you see that face, you know it. And he say, "Your daughter is dead." Why bother Jesus anymore? It's too late. There's nothing he can do. These are words that no parents want to hear. Can you see the despair now in Jairus' face? Because the healing of the woman has cost him the life of his daughter. Now, do you know what we call this? In an emergency room, whenever there's a patient with a problem that has been going for a while, and then there's another patient that's about to die, you must treat the person who's about to die first, right? It's logical and right to do that. But if you treat the person with ongoing problem first and the other patient die because of it, it is called malpractice. And you can get sued and lose your medical license because of it. How do I know? Because I watch Korean medical drama. Don't judge me. And this is what Jesus did. Jesus stopped to help a woman with her issue while Jairus' daughter was in critical condition. And now she died. All hope is lost. Why trouble Jesus anymore? Done. There is nothing Jesus can do. It is too late. It's over. But. I love that word but, okay? Because that word but tells us this. If you get this but, no matter, I know it sounds kind of weird, but if you get it, no matter what kind of situation you're in, listen, nothing is over as long as Jesus is in the equation. Look at verse 36. This is the big but that I talk about. But, overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, do not fear, only believe. And in Greek, the word believe is in present tense. With another word, this is what Jesus said to Jairus. Jairus, I know you believed me before. Jairus, I know you believe that I can heal your daughter. Don't stop believing now. Keep on believing. Keep on trusting. And for you and me, it sounds cute. Oh, that's cute. Keep on believing, keep on trusting. But if you're Jairus, this is really hard. Because when Jairus came to Jesus, what Jairus wanted was what? Healing. Jairus believed that Jesus could heal his daughter. But now what Jesus asked of Jairus is so much more. Because Jesus not only asked Jairus to believe him for healing, Jesus wants Jairus to believe him for resurrection. I mean, Jesus raised the bar here. I mean, it is one thing, right, to believe that Jesus can heal. It is another to believe Jesus for resurrection. So here's what we must understand about coming to Jesus, my friend. Whenever we go to Jesus with our needs, Jesus will demand more than what we're ready to give. And Jesus will give more than we dare to hope. Whenever we go to Jesus with our needs, Jesus will demand more than we're ready to give. And Jesus will give more than we dare to hope. Because at this point, Jesus has healed many sick people. Jairus knows, the crowd knows, the disciples know. But Jesus has never raised someone from the dead. Nobody has ever imagined that. I mean, it's beyond the realm of possibility. Heal the sick? Yes. Raise the dead? No way, amigo. And here, Jesus giving us and Jairus two options. And Jesus asking Jairus is, who are you going to believe? Who are you going to trust? Are you going to live based on your circumstances? Are you going to live by what I say? Are you going to live in fear? Or are you going to live by faith? Because fear and faith never go together. That means for all of us, listen, we have a choice to make. All of us have made a choice to make. Either we can be afraid of everything that happened around us, or we can trust Jesus. He will see us through. So let me make it more personal to us. Are we afraid of what might happen to our children? Or do we trust Jesus with our children? Are we afraid of our future and therefore we're going to make investment on the latest investment height, the latest robotic system? Or do we trust Jesus will provide all our need as we put him first? Are we afraid of what people might think of us when we share the gospel? Or do we trust that Jesus will vindicate us? Are we afraid of being single and lonely for the rest of our life? Or do we trust Jesus will never leave us nor forsake us? Are we afraid of getting infected by the latest variant of COVID-19? Or do we trust Jesus not to neglect the gathering of the saints? Because trust in Jesus requires faith against all odds. And when we come to Jesus, we'll find that Jesus demands more than we're ready to give, but He always gives infinitely more than we dare to hope. How do we know? Look at how the story ends. Resurrection. Verse 37 to 43. And He allowed no one to follow Him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. And when He had entered, He said to them, "Why are you making commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at Him. But He put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with Him and went in where the child was. Taking her by the hand, He said to her, "Talitha kumi," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And immediately the girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age. And they were immediately overcome with amazement. And He strictly charged them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat. So now Jesus only allowed the inner circle of John, James, and Peter to come with Him. And when they get to Jairus' house, basically what happened? People are weeping. Okay? Now let me give you the Jewish custom. In Jewish custom, whenever they have a funeral, they would hire professional mourners to weep at the funeral. It's kind of weird if you think about it, right? So this group of professional weepers will come to your funeral and say, "All right, guys, we're going to cry together in count of 3. 1, 2, 3, right? And that's what happened. And then Jesus says to them, "Why are you making noise and crying? She's not dead, she's sleeping." And they immediately laugh. 1 second, they're like, "Oh." The next second, they're, "Oh." Because why? Because they're professional mourners. But what's very interesting is Jesus' word, because Jesus said that the girl is not dead, but what? Sleeping. Now, does Jesus mean like literally the girl's not dead, guys? This is wrong diagnosis. She's just actually sleeping. I don't think that's the case. Because in the Bible, a lot of times, sleep is used to describe death. Because in Jesus' perspective, although death is real, it is not the end. Because Jesus is about to resurrect her from the dead. And that is why death is only sleeping from Jesus' perspective. So now Jesus tells everyone to leave the house, and He enters the room where Jairus' daughter is with her parents and the 3 guys. And then Jesus does the unthinkable. Jesus holds this girl's hand, the dead girl's hand, which is taboo, by the way. In ceremonial laws, you're not supposed to touch a corpse. But Jesus touches her hand, and Jesus said what? Talitha kumi. And this word is such a gentle word. I mean, the word Talitha is translated a little girl in English. But the word actually means, the actual word of Talitha means Ferdinand's daughter. Okay, that sounds true. It means little lamb. And the word little lamb, that's a word of endearment. So the best translation actually in English translation is the word honey. And the word kumi means arise. So in another word, Jesus is holding her hand, and Jesus said to this girl, "Honey, it's time to get up." This is a word of a parent who waked their daughter from her nap. And immediately the dead girl rises from the dead and begins walking. Now, do you see what happened? In this story, don't miss this, Jesus faces the greatest foe of mankind. This is greater enemy than storm and demons. Because Jesus faced our greatest foe, and that is death. And Jesus treated like waking a girl from a little nap. See, the same voice, listen, the same voice that brought order from chaos. The same voice that stills storm. The same voice that casts out demon and heal legion. That same voice brought life from death. And Jesus is showing to us here that He's not only King of the storm, that He's not only the King of demons. Jesus is the King of diseases and death. And when people witness that, they are overcome with amazement. because they have never seen anything like it. They wanted healing. They witnessed resurrection. 2 quick applications. What can we learn from this story? First, bring your desperation to Jesus. It does not matter what kind of desperation you have right now in your life. Listen, when you come to Jesus with it, He will honor you. He will honor the faith those who come to Him. So if right now you say you are experiencing physical struggle, if you're sick in any way, come to Jesus. So if you're experiencing financial struggle, come to Jesus. If you experience spiritual struggle, you feel like your Christian life is dry, come to Jesus. If you experience social struggle, you feel like abandoned, you feel like left out by all your friends, come to Jesus. Because Jesus cares for the hurts. It does not matter if your faith is imperfect. Because Jesus will stop for you if you come to Him in faith. And the point of this story is to implore all of us that we can come to Jesus with any kind of request and desperation that we have. Jesus is not too big for our requests. No, I'm not saying, hear me clearly, I am not saying that Jesus is a genie in a bottle that gives you whatever you wish. I am not saying that. But what I am saying, when you come to Him in faith, He will stop for you. But He will give you infinitely more than what you dare to hope. Because why? He will demand from you more than you're ready to give. Because He will demand you to trust Him. And it's not easy to trust Him, right? Because Jesus' plan is very different from our plan. Because your plan, my plan is touch and run. I get the blessing, I walk away. But Jesus said, all right, that might be your plan, but I have a different plan. I desire relationship. And Jesus' plan often will lead you to that. It feels like, hold on a second, why did you allow this to happen? Why did you allow this to die, Jesus? And the answer is not Jesus because Jesus does not love you, or no. Because Jesus wants more for you. You might want healing, but Jesus asks you to trust Him for resurrection. And you might be confused. You might not understand what's happening in your story, and that is fine. Because the point of this story is this: listen to the good news. Jesus is writing a far better story than what you have in mind. And His story ends in a glorious climax. How do I know? Simple. 12 years. You know what that number does, that 12 years? Think about it. I don't think it's coincidence that Jairus' daughter is 12 years old. And I don't think it's coincidence that this woman had this blood problem for 12 years. Tell us this, that God's been writing their story all along. They had no clue. They had no idea. But one day, 12 years of struggle, 12 years of pain, 12 years of life will come together. And when they come together, Jesus exalted and God received all the glory. So whatever desperation that you have, His encouragement, believe in Jesus. Persistent and faith and prayer. Because nothing is over when Jesus is in the equation. But second one, bring your debt to Jesus. Now let me explain. This story has a very strange ending. Look at verse 43. And He strictly charged them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat. Now can we agree this is very anticlimax? Why would you end the story this way? If I was Jesus, I would want everybody to know that I just resurrected a girl from the dead. Because that would be breaking news all over Israel. That validates Jesus as Messiah. Only God has the power to raise someone from the dead. But why didn't Jesus say, hey guys, don't tell anyone. I don't want anyone to know about the little girl's resurrection. Why? Here's why. Because that resurrection is not the point. The little girl's resurrection is only resuscitation. It is only temporary because why? Eventually this girl will die again. Listen, friends, even if Jesus give us right now, this moment, Jesus give us the ultimate cure of COVID-19, you're still going to die. Death is coming for all of us, whether we like it or not. Death is our ultimate enemy. And the last time I checked, there's no cure to death. Nothing can fix it. No one can do anything about it. It is a hopeless situation. So the question is, what happened when that death comes for us? And this is why Jesus tells them, don't tell anyone about this resurrection, because that's not the point. Because Jesus did not come to save us from temporary death, or no. Jesus came to save us from the ultimate death that is caused by sin. Jesus came to punch sin in the face and heal the root of all diseases and death. And that is sin. And this is the story of the gospel. See, the gospel tells us that you and I, we deserve eternal condemnation because of our sin against God. Sin makes us fearful of death. Do you know why you're afraid of death? Because you know judgment day is coming. You know that you have to be accountable for everything that you did. That's why you fear death. But now, the good news of the gospel is Jesus came to rescue us from that. Do you know how he did it? Here's how he did it. There's nothing more frightening for little kids than to lose their parents' hand in the middle of the crowd. And there's nothing more comforting for little kids than to know that their parents are holding their hand in a crowd. But do you know what happened to Jesus? At the cross, Jesus lost the Father's hands. At the cross, Jesus lost the hand that continued to hold him from eternity. Why? Because at the cross, Jesus took on the consequences of sin. He endured the wrath of God that you and I deserve. That's why at the cross, Jesus lost the Father's hands once and for all. Why? So that when we put our faith in Jesus, we can have the confidence God will never, ever let go of our hand. And at the cross, here's what happened. Jesus died for our sin, defeated death once and for all, so that when you and I face death, death no longer has sting. For those who put faith in Jesus, death is not something to be afraid of. Death is simply a doorway to eternity with your beloved one. So if you have yet to put your faith in Jesus, here's my encouragement. Bring your death to Jesus. Cast it upon the Calvary and receive the hand of God that will never, ever let you go. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for we have a King who conquers over all diseases and even death itself. So that right now we can have the confidence, Lord, that no matter what kind of situation we're in, it's not over. Because you are with us. Your hand is holding us. And this is the good news of the gospel that we put our trust in. Not in our ability to hold to your hand, but in your hand that will never, ever let us go. So tonight I want to encourage you. I have no idea what kind of desperate situation that you're in right now. You might experience physical struggle. You might experience financial struggle. You might experience spiritual struggle. Or you might experience social struggle. But here's what I know. When you come to Jesus in faith, He will honor that. So there's an invitation for you tonight. Come. Come to Jesus. Bring it to Him. Because He cares for you. He loves you. Maybe this struggle actually make you walk away from Jesus. But tonight there's an invitation. Return to Him. And yes, He might demand more than you're ready to give. But my friend, He will give you far more than you dare to hope. So embrace the good news of the gospel. Trust Him with your struggle. And see how He will come true for you. And we ask this in the name of your beloved Son, Jesus Christ, we pray.